Hello, everybody. We are back once again. The content team is trying to give some playoff previews. We've done this a couple times on previous seasons, and thanks to the hard work of one and only Loker. Say hello.
Yo, what's up?
And a couple other people on the content team who have inputted their rankings. We are now here with this neat little slideshow to present to you today. So we're just going to be going over our thoughts on some of these matchups, who we think will come on top, and a little bit on why. So just for reference, here is the bracket for the first round. We have Sharp versus Triple Tactics Typhlosion, Explorers Guild Rookies versus Palatine Mafia, Rotom Onwash versus Boss Marrow, and Cooking Yanmas versus the Big Appletons. So, without further ado, we can just jump into the first matchup for Splash Zone, that of course being Sharp versus Triple Tactics Typhlosion. So, I'm just curious to... I can just let you dive into this matchup a little bit and what your initial thoughts are on some key mons.
Yeah, so this is the most lopsided matchup, I think. I mean, it makes sense, right? The one seed got to pick who they wanted to play against. The matchup doesn't really look good for Triple Tactics Typhlosion, primarily because we don't have a fairy type, and MVP of the league with like double the next one's points of Raging
just killing
Moon
everyone every game.
will probably kill everyone every game again for another series. There is some stuff on Triple Tactics Typhlosion. I mean, General Schmungus, Dondozo himself, should be able to get in and be unaware and not be able to be hit by a super effective move, as well as he does have a fairy type technically in Miss Magius as well.
Yeah, that could be huge.
But it does feel hard because the rest of his team, besides Roaring Moon, is also good at making way for Roaring Moon to do the things that he needs to do. So it looks like the most, in my opinion, it's the most lopsided matchup. And as you'll see from the next slide, it probably is going to be everyone's most lopsided matchup of the six that we got for the...
Yeah.
And there it is.
Looking at the predictions here, we do have a clean 6 sweep of all the voters. Those being Loker, myself, Kyrogenes, Rexalis, Lexus, and Squonk King in that order. 99 meaning that it's the matchup that we think think for sure is going to go that way.
One we're most likely
most
is going to go that way.
Yeah, the prediction we're most confident in.
We're keeping points, so I don't remember the exact system, but you get more points if you correctly the one that you're most likely to get correct. So these are you do one for each league. 5 of us, except for Squonk King, picked this is our matchup that we're most likely going to go the way of Sharp. And again, we kind of touched on it. Roaring Moon looks great here. General Schmungus is the general standing in the way.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not sure.
He could put an end to Roaring Moon, but it's going to be really tight, even though he's so physically bulky. If you mess up positioning, you don't let your Dondozo heal somehow, Roaring Moon can come in, do a hit and run, get the better of you, especially if something like hazards are up. It can be pretty hard, pretty fast. So
yeah, Dozo will be taking hazard. I mean, it's probably not going to be boots, so it's taking hazard coming in. If it gets hit, it could just get hit by one move on a switch, and then if it doesn't get a chance to heal, like you said, if it's mispositioned, then Roaring Moon just needs this thing to go down. And if Miss Magius isn't there for some reason, then we really have nothing else besides Dozo, and Dozo generally tends to get chipped down.
One thing, though, I will give a shout to the side of TTT. There's notably not a great flying resist. So, potentially great angle for that Hawlucha to come in for an endgame sweep. If it's able to get a Swords Dance off, then it could get really scary really fast for the side of Sharp. So there are potential win cons here. Obviously, you always got to be on the lookout for Gouging Fire as well. But those two sweepers could potentially turn the tides in Triple Tactics Typhlosion's favor, especially if he's able to hold off these Roaring Moon hits with that Dondozo. So
yeah, and with how well Kyrogenes has come into the end of the season, I mean, he struggled week 1, but with how consistent he's been, I doubt he lets his team get in a position where Hawlucha is going to sweep through or Gouging Fire. I just trust the trainer more as well. Not to say Holmesy's not good. I mean, he made it to playoffs, but Kyrogenes has been on a roll the whole
and I think that
season.
really is the key of it all. Part of the reason why the matchup isn't too terrible on paper, But part of the reason I think it's gone 6-0 prediction-wise is just because Karagenesis looks so dominant. And he's
Yeah,
looked,
he does.
past that week 1, I think he's looked really clean for the most part. So I really do have a lot of faith in him, and that's why.
Yeah, well prepped and well played pretty much every week. So that's what you can expect from Sharp. It would take a monstrous effort from General Schmungus and crew to be able to get through, I think.
But I mean, General Schmungus can do it, so I'm looking forward to this series. I think it'll be a good one.
It should be a fun series either way.
Yeah. Moving on, we have Cooking Yanmas versus the Big Appletons. This is actually your team, the Big Appletons, facing off against Dean's Cooking Yanmas. Notably, 2 players who promoted from Gengar last season, which I think it's really cool that both you guys have found so much success and are in the playoffs today. So
yeah, I'm excited for this matchup. For all fairness, I did get absolutely rolled in the first matchup against Cooking Yanmas, and I did think that my matchup was pretty bad. I'm not going to obviously leak any prep, but I did. It was kind of like a puzzle to solve where I had to figure out a way to get through a lot of the more obviously bad things. But the beautiful thing about Pokemon is there's usually always a way, and I'm hoping I'll be playing later today when this video is recorded. I'm hoping I'll let you take the rest of the segment over because I don't want to talk too much about my own team, but I am hoping that I can turn the fortunes around because I did get smashed in regular season against this guy.
Yeah, I mean, notably, I think one of the biggest issues with this matchup is one of the stars of your team, this Weavile. This is one of the hardest matchups for it by far, facing off not 1 but 2 strong vacuum waves, which absolutely demolish it, take away the whole advantage of such a high speed tier. But I do think, like
and
you
bullet
said,
punch.
Yeah, Sinistcha, absolutely fantastic Mon last time in the matchup. That's why it's going to be the highlight for Dean's side. And then finally Dragonite, which I do think, there's a couple directions you can go with Dragonite. Late game scenario, if Tinglu is chipped, it starts to get really scary if you get a D-Dance off. Obviously, E-Speed is going to be great into these Vacuum Wave users. And it also has a generally good typing into stuff like Keldeo, right? So it's going to be a lot. It's going to have a lot on its shoulders, but I think it can definitely do it. As you can see, predictions-wise, completely even split down the middle. So, I mean, this is obviously a matchup that could go either way. This is, I think, the closest matchup that we've had in this first round of the playoffs.
I think on the surface it looked more Dean or Cooking Yama sided, but after doing the prep, I'm confident in myself and my team. So time will tell. I think I don't blame for the people who have went against me because Dean is a good coach.
2-0 in the regular season, so
and a 2-0 and it wasn't close.
Favor.
Game 2 I think was a 5-1.
It was a pretty dominant match.
Or 5-0, and I think the first game was like a 3-0. So neither match was generally very close. So, but time will tell. I'm excited for the matchup. It just sucks we're gonna be friendly firing Gengar, but which unfortunately, if you looked at the bracket, 3 of 4 of Gengar made it to the playoffs that promoted last season, and all three of us are on the same side of the bracket with just Boss Merrill on the side with us. So,
speaking of Boss Merrill versus that Rotom Unwashed you were just talking about, that is our next matchup coming up here. The 8 seed Boss Merrill sneaking into playoffs, but I think he has a pretty good shot here. Looking at some key
preseason favorite for what it's worth. He was the preseason favorite coming in. In our preseason rankings, he was the highest ranked team that we had.
Some early season struggles, but with a key win in week 6, he kind of marched back. So does have
as well as 2 big additions too. I mean, Klefki is severely underpointed this season for what we found out.
Absolutely.
And Terra Garget was better than, I believe he had like Terra Arcanine before. I mean, we're adding Terra Garget, which is a much better Pokemon as well.
And helps some of that roll compression and taking some load off of Iron Treads. But as far as key mons, that Garganacl you highlighted is going to be a very big deal. Stuff like Ogerpon and Dragapult on the other side are going to be very, very key threats. But if this Garganacl is positioned well, it should be able to at least hold them back off for long enough for some of his key threats to pop off. Notably, this Kyurem, something with like a Freeze Dry set, or maybe like Dragon Dance mixed with Freeze Dry or Earth Power could be very threatening. On the side of Rotom Unwashed, though, we're gonna highlight this Ogre Pawn because I mean it just has a fantastic matchup offensively. Before Garganackle Terras, it's really hard to switch into, especially if it's packing like U-turn for Zarude or Play Rough for Kyurem and that Zarude. So
I think you're playing the game almost like an OU, where you have to guess the set, and you're probably gonna, if you guess wrong, you're gonna either lose at least most of them on or a whole mon. Trying to figure out, is he a U-turn? Is he Play Rough? Is he SD? Is he just gonna smack me in the face with a cudgel, which you also just don't want to be eating either. So, I mean, Wellspring has been talked about a billion times. The mon is absolutely disgustingly versatile, and a lot of his sets look good this week, and that's why I thought it was worth highlighting.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think a potential late game SD Trailblaze set with Play Rough could be good. I even think like a U-turn set that's just trying to get in there early game might be even better, especially if it has a disruption tool for this Garganackle, something like Encore or Taunt, to make sure that it can't do its thing forever, you know? In that case, it's going to be really hard to pin down, and it
can't answer everything with one set, but it can answer. It can make you guess, and it can make you lose something trying to figure out what it can and can't answer.
It can
and by
be
that time,
really
the battle
risky
is half over.
To try and figure out what this Ogre Pawn is going to be. So again, has some votes. Kyrogenes and himself. But you know, I think Rotom Unwashed, he's looked really good this season. I can't really say much about him. It's just been really solid all around. Again, I do think the matchup is pretty good for him. I also do have trust in him that he's going to take this one. But, you know, I don't think it'll be a clean sweep or anything. Again,
I think it'll be a 2-1. I think Rex Ellis will take a game. But I think Rotom Wash is just... Honestly, I think his team is very good. I'm not a huge fan of the Decidueye Pokemon, as I've said a billion times. But I do think the team is just really good. And for me being a King Gambit hater, as we said in the beginning of the season, I do think it's well positioned on this team to be like an actual usable part.
Yeah, this is one of the better King Gambit teams that I've seen. So, you know, I don't hate it. And yeah.
We didn't even mention the fact he has Thunderous Therian with Terra, which is also great.
Oh, yeah. It's also very, very well positioned here. You know, obviously your big special wall Slowking doesn't really want to be dealing with Thunderous, you know, so.
Yeah, or for that matter, doesn't really want to deal with Goobit or like.
Yeah. You also have that Terra Water for Iron Treads, who would normally be a decent, like,
pretty decent
intermediate
answer,
check.
With skill typing.
That steel ground typing, but that Terra Blast Water potentially coming in is huge. So
yeah, again, there's just so many options with Rotom Unwashed, and he is very good at prepping. I mean, I played against him in finals last season. I'm excited to see what he brings and what he values in his mocks to be worth bringing on both Ogerpon and Thunderous Therian.
Absolutely, but that is enough on that matchup. Let's get to our final Splash Zone matchup: Explorers Guild Rookies, the 4 and 5. Yeah. So again, both these teams have had some ups and downs this season. I think they finally kind of found their place around that middle of the season. And ever since then, both of these teams have been churning along pretty well for the most part. I'm curious to see what your thoughts on this matchup are. As far as highlighted mons, we have Zapdos and that Snorlax coming in here.
Yeah, just for the record, he is the 6th seed, not the 5 seed. I actually miswrote that. I'm the 5 seed, but he is the 6th seed. When I said that, I was like, wait a minute.
The 4 and 5.
4 and 5, yeah. So looking at this matchup, I think this matchup is pretty close. I believe I chose a 2-1 for PTM, and I believe in all of our... We're pretty close. I don't think anyone did a clean sweep. I was more on the side of Explorer Guild Emissaries until I looked at the Snorlax mon, and I think it's like really well positioned to be a menace against Josh's team. So if you want to go back to the last slide, we can take a look. There's not many things on Josh's on Explorer Guild rookies. I don't know if it's emissaries or rookies. I thought it was emissaries, but maybe it's rookies.
I don't know.
Whatever. There's not a lot that can deal with Snorlax. I think. I mean, I'm not sure if you have any ideas on what is like a good Snorlax check on his
really
team.
Hard. It could be something like
Tauros, maybe
Sacred Sword, or a Superpower on that Deoxys. But I mean, it's not gonna be dying in one hit to anything. Especially, I mean,
it's great.
It's
gonna
if it is, it's gonna have to be that Tauros. But I don't think Jamarca is just gonna stay in and let that happen. So
Yeah, and Jamark has the switches for. Is that's the fire one? I
Um,
believe, right?
I think so. It's
Let me
either
go
the
check.
fire and or the fighting one. I think that's the fire one.
Let me go check. Can't see. Oh yeah, it is the fire one. Yep. So it's the fire one. So we could check it with Weezing, probably. I mean, or we could check it like Garchomp probably can eat one as well. I mean, I do think Tauros is what I've learned from my team is Tauros sometimes just coming out and just smacking a big move with a choice band a lot of times can cause some major damage.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets a read right, maybe he throws out an Iron Head onto that Weezing. Things can get pretty scary pretty fast, especially since I mean, he does have a Necrozma for a second fighting resist option, so that is.
And Necrozma really wants to look for that Terra. So if we're if we do end up ripping the Terra, I'm not saying you have to, but if we do rip the Terra early, then we don't have a resist or we have one less resist. So I do think I would genuinely be surprised if Tauros wasn't at least thought of in the builder. I'm not sure it ends up coming. I didn't spend that much time thinking about the matchup, but Tauros does look good if you're scared of that Snorlax. I do also think that on the side of Peloton Mafia, that Necrozma can get scary very, very quickly if it's has the right options with Terra and D-Dance. I mean, it can get through that Petra run, I believe, probably with Terra. It doesn't even need it because, well, does it? I don't know if it'll need it or not because I'm not sure. I believe Ghost resists Psychic, so
No, it does not.
It doesn't. So then we could just what is the move called? The one you just used
Photon
on me last
Geyser.
week. Photon Geyser. We could just Photon Geyser at +1. And that's probably enough to go over 50% on Petch. So I mean, Necrozma can easily get out of control as well. On the side of Josh's side, I do think Zapdos is really good this week.
Yeah, we highlighted the Zapdos mon. It's gonna be walling a lot of key threats on the side of Peloton Mafia. You know, if it's like Fizz Def, it's going to be really great into something like that Scizor, for example. And it's going to be able to throw off a lot of free Volt switches, a lot of Hurricanes, just be a bit of a nuisance all around. Really only that Garchomp standing in its way, but I mean, it's not the hardest guy in the world to switch around, especially if you already have that Terra Fairy on that Apple. So, I mean, Zapdos is pretty well positioned here, I think. He's going to have a lot of opportunities to throw off some Hurricanes, throw off some electric moves, but yeah.
And we got Static, too, for any contact moves that come in as well.
I just generally think, with that Snorlax and Immunity just being such a good tool into Pecharunt, which honestly is kind of like the MVP of this team. It's the one that, like, it's kind of the engine of this team. And there's just so many other special threats.
It's completely nullified here.
It's completely nullified. It's really going to be hard pressed to do much into the Snorlax, but there are some ways around it. Like we said, there are some fighting moves you can throw out to try and get rid of him. But I do think in general, Mark's team is well positioned to kind of tank this hit and run style and deal out more damage in return. And that's ultimately
I think it'll just make it in the long term. I think the styles match up well for PTM here, which makes sense because as the 4 seed, Josh did not get to pick his matchup, and I'm not sure if he had full reign. I'm not sure he would be. I don't think he would have taken this matchup if he had full reign of the bottom 4. So.
If I had to guess, probably not. But sometimes that's just the way the dice fall, you know.
Yep.
With that being said, we can start moving on to Sharpedo Wave Pool. Coming in with our first matchup, we have Mafie's Monsters versus Brock's Chef Proteges. Mount Pyre Mythics versus Pacificlog Polyraths. Oklahoma Okidojis versus Chinchito's Casino. And finally, Midwest Mudstills versus...
Oh my god, all these guys have the same... Besides Chef Brock's Proteges, you got all the... What do they call it?
Alliteration.
Alliteration.
Big alliteration fans in Wave Pool. Holy... Bit of a mouthful, but you know what? It's all good. So, we can just jump straight into our 1 seed matchup. So, the matchup that he has specifically tailored or picked out, Mafie's Monsters versus Brock's Chef Proteges. Coming in here, there are some notable things to point out here. One, I think a big weakness of this team is going to be Electric Stab, but that's notably absent from the side of Brock's Chef Proteges.
Yeah.
no Terra, no real electric options at all, to be honest. So
I mean, I'm looking all the way down at like, does Drifloom get Thunderbolt?
yeah, but
We're
that's
looking all like
yeah.
there's like nothing. There's nothing. There's no electric stab, and that was like a big critique we had of the defensive core of this team was the electric stab weakness.
But I mean, looking at our highlighted Mons, we do have this Garchomp. If we look back on the matchup, notably no fairy types. So this Garchomp can get out of hand really fast.
Or Roaring Moon, for what it's
or
worth.
Roaring Moon.
They
Yeah.
two big dragon types with D-Dance and big damage coming down without a fairy type. And you'll see when we go back to that page, we did have to highlight my nemesis here.
Yeah, I mean,
because it is his only possible fairy type he has
I
to
just
deal with these moves.
I don't think it's going to be a very comfortable position if Terra Decidueye is going to be your main check. You know, even with that Terra Fairy, it's not going to be the bulkiest mon in the world. So if you like misposition it, you take one bad hit, it gets crit once, unfortunately. Like, sometimes it might just go down. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, what's really going to stop my team from getting outraged 6 times? If Decidueye goes down, the answer is absolutely nothing. So it's going to be difficult for Mophies to position around these dragon types with that Decidueye, but if he's able to do it, ultimately his own offensive
team is
threat
just
will kick in.
Just hitting buttons. Like,
yeah,
like we have a lot of like just big damage coming down, and I think our defensive core, while not being like particularly good into dragon types, without there being electric stab, is pretty good at switching between the two of them.
Yeah,
and that could be big.
I mean,
for
there's
playing
things like Mandibuzz is like with foul play would be a pretty good Swords Dance Garchomp check. You know, like there's other options that can take a little bit of the pressure off of this Decidueye, stuff like that. So ultimately, I believe most of the votes went in favor of Mophies Monster. It's just
a great season.
It's just hard to vote against the 1 seed for me, even though there are
in round
some,
1, because there might be something that he knows that we don't know. Like they might know that they might have prepped this matchup because they picked this, so they might know what they want for matchup. Like we don't know. So I'm gonna go with the 1 seed until proven otherwise. They had a great season. But I don't think the matchup is nearly as lopsided as the 5-1 makes it look. Kind of like how Sharp is very much one-sided to me.
No, this
is more of a less one-sided.
I think this is a very winnable matchup for Brock's Chef's Proteges.
Yeah.
So, that being said, we can move on to our next matchup, Midwest Mudsdales versus the Germany Gemstones. And I actually think that this slow hazard stacking style of Mudsdales really matches up well into what is ultimately a fairly sluggish team on the side of Germany's Gemstones.
Very sluggish, very passive.
I think Annihilape's going to be putting up a masterclass against this Iron Treads. It has a lot of opportunities to heal up. And it's
not to mention Palafin's second father, Skarmory is here to absolutely make its day terrible. As well as Claude, for that matter, does match up pretty good.
And even, dare I say, Terra Dragon Avalugg.
No!
Dare I say. But Palafin
just looks terrible this week.
Yeah, Palafin
when your Monarch
just doesn't
looks
look
terrible,
great here.
We're in a bad spot.
Yeah. It's never going to be a great time if your Monarch isn't looking very good. And unfortunately, it's just not. So, I do think he's going to struggle to remove these hazards. I do think they're going to eat into his slow pivot style team a lot. And
Annihilate super well positioned to kill everyone.
Super well positioned here, and there's just no mon on the other side that I feel like is equally well positioned. But there is some things to talk about. Enamorus I think if there is going to be a star of the show for Freddy, it is going to be this Enamorus Therian. Its base typing in general is pretty good. It does have to worry about this Enamorus and Iron Moth 2 matchups it could potentially Terra out of. I mean,
Thunderous, yeah.
Thunderous. If it turns into a rock, maybe he gets that special defense
No,
boost.
not into a rock.
He turns into a rock. He gets that special defense boost. It is going to be able to eat up these special attacks pretty well. Very bulky in that Sandstorm, but it leaves it vulnerable to some other things, namely that Samurott and Annihilape that you would prefer to be beating. But
yeah, I think it's really, really tough for Annihilape is sitting in the back to ever feel comfortable Terra Rock, because that Anam is like our best check into Annihilape.
Yeah, there's things like, I mean, you could try to go Amoonguss and Maybe like
Yeah, it's like a Mungus or an
hit it
M.
with a stun sport. Otherwise, if you try to attack it, you're just not really going to be getting much in return for that Rage Fist deck. You could try to paralyze it with like Terra Titar, or with that Amoonguss, or with that Rotom there, but other than that, you're going to be hard pressed for a lot of options against this scary looking ape. So, you know, there are some roads, especially through this Enamorus, I think, but ultimately
we all ended up being on the side of Midwest Mudsdales. The matchup looks better than the 1 seed matchup.
The matchup looks very good, in my opinion. So that is ultimately what.
And neither of us were ever a big fan of this T-Tar, like, slow.
Yeah, I just
really
think there's some fundamental issues with this team. I don't really believe in this combination of 9 Pokemon all that much.
Yeah, but they proved us wrong making playoffs, because I don't think either of us had to make in playoffs and want them to drop T-Tar and rebuild their team in a different way. So you still made playoffs, and you know anything can happen in a playoff match.
They've defied the expectations just by making it here. So I mean, there's definitely a real chance they can continue to do so and push on in this playoff series. So we can move on to Oklahoma Okidojis versus Genshinos Casino. This matchup, pretty scary for the side of Genshinos Casino. Notably, there's no flying resist. His steel type, not a flying resist. His electric type, both of his electric types are not flying resist. His only flying resist is going to be that Terra Steel on Screamtail. So I mean, Hawlucha just looks absolutely unreal here.
Yeah, and if Hawlucha is Terra Fire, Terra Blast, could get very scary. I mean, then we're not able to match it with almost anything.
Yeah, the only real thing that is going to be stopping this Hawlucha from pulling off that sweep could be that strong priority. We have a Bullet Punch. We have the Water Shuriken on the side of
Water Shuriken into Terra Fire could be big if you force the Terra Fire.
If he does Terra Fire, then Water Shuriken is decently well positioned to stop the sweep. But I mean, man, it's just if this Hawlucha ever comes in for free, it's just going to be so devastating for the side of Oklahoma.
Yeah, it feels like Hawlucha needs like one Swords Dance with an Unburden, Grassy Seed, or whatever, and then we're just in a place where
you're losing a lot.
The matchup, yeah, because then we're playing the Minds games. We bring in Screamtail. Now is he gonna Terra? Am I gonna Terra? Like, and then if he doesn't Terra for some reason, and we still get through the Screamtail, then Greninja maybe is not looking at that one shot with the Water Shuriken.
But with that in mind, like you said, that is going to be our highlighted mon for the other side, because that is going to be ultimately his best tool. I think if you get the reads right, you know, you get that 50-50 right on the Terra Steel. Is he going to fighting move? Is he going to flying move? You know, you could ultimately get that Thunder Wave or something similar off on that Hawlucha and put an end to the sweep, but it's still going to cost you your Screamtail, you know? It's not going to be a clean exit either way, and it just feels really impossible to get rid of this guy. I'll be honest, especially if that.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the rest of his team. I mean, we're still on a team with Lando standing up and Terapagos, my boy Terapagos. Rillaboom is a threat in his own right with priority Grassy Glide into Blast, given a double water type. Like, there's a lot of other. Heatran is a great Pokemon in his own right, so there's a lot of things behind the Hawlucha, even if it is dealt with. Like you said, it's never going to be a clean exit. You're always losing more than Hawlucha gave.
Yeah, and it's tough because the main. Two of the main sweeping threats on the side of Genshinos Casino, that Blastoise and Gren, are going to be really hard-pressed to do it in the face of that Grassy Glide. So
yeah, maybe it's Protein Greninja this week.
It could be Protein. It does have pretty decent coverage. You could go something like not Loki. You would Surf Heatran. But, I mean, Water Stab in general with that Ice Beam backing it up is going to be pretty scary for the most part, you know? Crawdon's not going to want to take that. So
yeah, Greninja looks very good. Looks very well positioned. We didn't say it, but for the record, we did try to avoid putting Monarchs in our key mons to watch because obviously Monarchs are almost always good unless you're Palafin. But Greninja does look very well positioned offensively this week, as it does most weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the one sweeping threat you do have on your side could be that potential Mew, right? Something with like an Earthquake to hit Heatran. Suddenly you get a Dragon Dens off, things are looking pretty scary, right? Something like that. So there are avenues to go about it. Maybe something like a Terra Blast.
It's not winnable, but I put my 99 on Lexus because I believe in him. I want to see him get back up to the the splash zone, and I think he will. So as much as I think the matchup before this one is more one-sided, I'm gonna put my faith in Lexus to take this one home this week.
Yeah, I think a lot of people believe in Lexus to kind of go through this playoff bracket with a lot of success. So with that in mind, that is going to be where all of our predictions lie. But yeah, I mean, I do just think this Hawlucha is going to be such a menace to deal with. It's going to be really hard. But there are some avenues to deal with it. Maybe something like a focus sash if he's able to keep hazards off. Creative ways like that, you know, that can kind of go around this Hawlucha. Now, we can finally get on to our last but not least matchup. Malpire Mythics versus Pacifilog Polyraths. So, with that in mind, we could talk about some of the key mons. In this case, going to be that Superior, who honestly has a pretty good speed tier. Going to be faster than that Ogre Pawn. Going to be able to threaten things, especially that Goldango if it's Terra Ground, you know. And it's also going to be able to threaten the main special wall in that Ting Lu. The main thing standing in its way is going to be that Hydrapple if it's its base typing. It's not really going to be able to do much. It does get Dragon Pulse, so that's something to look out for.
Or if it Terras, it could be Terra Fire and hit it. If it ends up being Terra Steel, you could Terra Fire it or Terra Ground it.
Yeah.
So there is definitely answers to Superior on the side of Polyraths, but I do think Superior is well positioned to be super good. For once, its speed tier has not felt lacking in this game.
Oh yeah,
a lot of times 113 can feel like not quite enough to get there. But Ogre Pawn can't be faster than 110 because it's stuck with its item. And Flygon is probably not coming. I mean, I don't really think Flygon without Terra has a lot of legs to stand on, especially against Weavile. And then Arcanine's hitting you with extreme speed 99% of the time anyway. So
yeah, its speed tier is actually really great, like you said, getting the jump on that Ogre Pawn, among many other things. Looking at the other side of the matchup, notably not Ogre Pawn Wellspring for once, who actually has a number of things that could be pretty.
Yeah, it was crazy. We were prepping this video, looking at these two teams. Moltres with Grass Terra and Quillfish, and for that matter, I'm sure Bellybolt also can deal with it well enough. Like, we're looking at 3 different checks for Ogre Pawn here. If I'm Polyraths, I do not want to see that matchup with my I mean, I didn't watch every game Polyraths played, but Ogre Pawn usually ends up being close to the MVP of every team that it's on. So you do not want to see a mon like Ogre Pawn getting walled by 3 things in a draft league in playoffs. That just sounds very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for sure. On the other side, I do have that Clefable highlighted. I think there's a couple routes you could go with it. Obviously, like a physically defensive Clefable into stuff like that Weavile in that Great Tusk could go a long way, especially if you're something like Rocky Helmet. Or I think even there is potential for an offensive Clefable with maybe a Life Orb, or if you don't want to go that far, just some good amount of special attack investment. With that strong Moonblast, it's so good into this team with electric coverage behind it.
Yeah, electric coverage,
to be able
Moonblast,
to hit,
and we're
every except for Pheasantipity, it's going to hit all 3 of the fairy resists on the side of Malpire Mythics with that Thunderbolt, or Thunder if you're lacking for power a little bit. But I think
the Life Orb could be interesting. Here. Getting that power without the downside due to Magic Guard.
That Magic Guard is going to keep it healthy, and it's still going to be able to heal up and function as kind of that mid-ground check that it always tries to fulfill. You know, other mons to look at, Ting Lu, obviously, always good. It's going to be able to stomach even super effective hits from things like this Weavile and the Superior, but it's also going to be very good into this Latios. Going to threaten it with Dark Stab and be able to tank the strong Psychic hits that this team could otherwise struggle with. And yeah, it's gonna be a slog. This matchup is honestly really unclear in my mind, and that's why, you know,
3-3.
3-3 down the middle. As
Me and
you
you are both on the Polyrath side, but not strongly. I do think there's win cons from both sides. Notably, Cryogenis did 99 this matchup, so a lot of confidence coming out from Malpire Mythics.
Is bold, but you know,
that's how you get ahead in the predictions. Yeah, if it works out, it works out. So
fair enough.
Yeah, this is maybe the closest matchup. Either this one or my matchup with Yanma's is probably the closest matchup that we have coming into this week.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to see this matchup. I think it'll be a slog back and forth. These are two very, very good teams in my opinion. So it's a shame that they have to take each other out in the first round, but you know, sometimes that's just how the chips fall.
Yep.
So here are the final tallies. Anything notable? I see you highlighted some things on the right side.
Yep, I highlighted a few things on the right side. I think that a lot of it is kind of what we went over. I mean, the largest favorite, Sharp by far is the largest favorite for everyone, I think. I mean, someone, I believe Lexus gave TTT 1. I can maybe imagine a world where that happens, but I'm pretty confident on this 2-0 here. Our second biggest favorite is OKC and Centino's Casino. Another one that we were pretty sure was going to go the way of OKC. Less of a number 2 and number 3 are definitely less than number 1. Number 3 being Midwest Mudsdales, I believe, versus Germany's Gemstones. That one honestly felt more of a one-sided matchup, but maybe our personal bias of Lexus and wanting to see him succeed, maybe carrying that other matchup up a little bit. We're most divided on, I believe that's one we just actually said, Cook versus Big and PP versus MPM. Those are the two matchups that we talked about being the closest, as well as what all of our people on the board did say were the closest. Most 99s are pretty obvious, OKC and Sharp. And then most uncertain, again, we have the PP. I'm not going to try to say the name because I'm going to mess it up. PP versus MPM, Cook versus Big, and then also a less talked about matchup. EGR versus PTM is also a very uncertain matchup between the 6 of us who were trying to figure out who is going to win. I was trying to. That's Josh versus
notably,
DeMarc.
No one, no matter who you voted for, gave that series a 2-0. So everyone thinks that series is going 3 matches. So. I mean, definitely a very, very evenly split matchup. Even though it was 4-2, it looks a little unbalanced. But, like, man, that matchup really could go either way. So
yeah, I think so. I think definitely could go either way. That one is the one that's probably going to be the most contested. I doubt that that's clean 2-0, like you said. So
that's going to be a slog in my mind. It's going to be a longer series. It's going to be back and forth. But I mean, we'll just have to see. I think it'll be a great game. I think we're going to see a lot of great games this week, and I'm looking forward to a lot of them. You know,
every matchup is hype in its own way. Even TTT versus Sharp, which you're most certain on.
I'd be hyped to see
the first game. Things are going to go crazy on game 2. So we'll see what everyone's got in store. Not sure we're going to do another video next week for the quarters. Maybe a quick 5-minute rundown, or we might just do a little write up. I'm not sure. We're going to try to get some content out for the quarters after this week. But wait, is this quarters?
This is quarters. Yes.
Oh, this is quarters. Oh, so for semis, yeah, because it'll be 14.
Yeah, maybe expect like a matchup breakdown from one of these or something like that.
And we'll update the board as well of the 6 of us.
Yeah.
Our current scores and update that as well. So there will be more content coming to you guys. Good luck. So, apologies to everyone who didn't make it to the playoffs. Good luck to everyone who did, and we'll see everyone back next week with some sort of content.
Thank you very much. If you watched this far, have a great one.